Now, the big topic for today was going to be this opinion piece, which is, of course, the top Ethereum killers. And this is by CoinDesk. And like I said, an opinion piece. I'm going to have my own opinions about it. What we need to do, though, is kind of set the playing field here. And that's because you need to understand that Ethereum is different than Bitcoin at its heart. While there are, of course, projects being built within Bitcoin that could add it into, of course, the Ethereum sphere, it's not really quite at the level, and it's not really the point of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is more of a, I guess, a currency. A lot of people will say a store of value and so on. In the case of Ethereum, from the get-go, it was about smart contracts. What I will use for that term is going to be programmable blockchain. Now, for the most part, within programmable blockchains, especially within the top 100 or the top 20, which is what's going to be discussed here in this article, all you have are alternate types of consensus mechanisms. Essentially, you have different consensus mechanisms that validate transactions on the blockchain. In the case of Ethereum, what we have is proof of work. Now, of course, Ethereum is talking of moving off of proof of work. It actually looks like it's in the works and moving towards proof of stake. While everything else on this list is already on proof of stake, or something else that they kind of name it something else, but it's essentially still proof of stake, right? You have proof of history, I believe, for one of these. We'll get into that in some other video. The point being, though, of course, right now as it sits, Ethereum within the top 20 is the only proof of work programmable blockchain. And I think as an asset, that sets itself apart from these competitors. Does it mean that the struggles that some of these competitors have are directly related to their consensus mechanism? I don't have any proof of that. All I can say is it does seem like it's more likely to have more issues outside of proof of work. Let's go ahead and get into this article, though. So new crypto investors likely noticed the drastic price drops and bearish sentiment detectable throughout the crypto market, with Bitcoin at a 6-month low and all coins not far behind. Now, we've had a pretty good pump here. Bitcoin at 45,480 and Ethereum even on their own website, 3,224. That makes this introduction a little weird, but let's move on. Yet crypto industry insiders remain optimistic, at least from a long-term perspective, and embrace this moment as somewhat of a race to see which blockchain projects survive and become leaders in a decentralized future. This article originally appeared on Crypto for Advisors. Maybe that's why this intro is like that. But among the most epic rivalries in the wild crypto west are those between Ethereum, the original smart contract blockchain, and projects created to improve upon Ethereum's technology. So one of the big notes about this too that needs to get discussed is the difference between basically a layer 1 solution and a layer 2 solution. I believe someone was talking about Matic in the chat way early on before we messed up and didn't stream. But one of the things I got to point out there is that's a layer 2 solution that's still built on top of Ethereum. These are going to be layer 1 solutions. They would, in theory, could have their own layer 2 solutions. Not that they're really needed because the consensus mechanism allows for them to basically keep fees low, etc. So Ethereum's native currency, Ether, had a market cap of roughly $370.5 billion at the time of writing this, and it sits at number 2 on the CoinDesk 20, just below Bitcoin. The Ethereum network is scheduling planned upgrades in 2022, and some say the new version, Ethereum 2.0, will offer improved processing times, lower fees, and more scalability. Until then, so-called Ethereum killers are building up momentum and occupying a growing share of the non-fungible token NFT market. Although Ethereum still maintains about 80% of the NFT transactions, also I think as a side note there, I think 80% of those transactions are on OpenSea. So one of the things that people need to pay attention to is like, we are in that weird correlation to the internet bubble where first movers do have a significant advantage for the time being. Does that mean that they will always be king of the hill? No, it just means like if you're a first mover, you have a significant advantage. And the first movers in this whole NFT space is clearly Ethereum. And then on top of that, OpenSea. So while OpenSea has its issues, it does mean a lot that they're a first mover. And because of that, you should pay attention to essentially what your pricing would be for an NFT and your potential for resale on OpenSea, where basically like 80% of the population is participating in NFTs, compared to what your potential of resale of an NFT is outside of OpenSea. And while that's not financial advice, it's just clear, like, obviously, if you want to go sell something, your best bet is to sell it on Amazon, not on, whatever other third-party website that's in existence. Does that mean the other third-party site's terrible? No, it just means that you're going to have a better chance of selling it for a higher price on a platform where more people are located. That's just the way it goes. The year 2022 will be the battle for Web3 and the next evolution of the internet, says Ian Bolina, founder of the crypto analytics firm Token Metrics. Look for a heated race. One of the things interesting about this that we're going to go into too is none of these really solve Web 3.0, at least Web 3.0's base issue, which is going to be infrastructure. But let's get into these real quick. The first one's going to be Solana. Currently at number 5 on the CoinDesk 20, Solana's native currency Sol had a market cap of $62.3 billion at the time of this writing. Solana uses proof of history, which I'm going to do some more research on for you guys, to validate transactions, as opposed to Ethereum's proof of work consensus model. Large institutions such as JP Morgan and Bank of America have expressed their confidence in Solana, even saying it could become the Visa of digital asset ecosystem. Well, one of the things that Solana has a problem with that isn't even mentioned here that we should mention is, of course, a lot of the hacks that are going on within it. Now, the last one, which was the big one, just to be clear, was due to the actual bridge being a problem, not necessarily Solana. But Solana has also had a ton of downtime. And that's what happens when you have a centralized currency. Let's talk about why it's centralized here. They actually bring it up, so it's pretty easy. Solana is also backed by top venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz, which isn't always considered a good thing in the world of Web3. No, it's actually always considered a bad thing. If you talk to a majority of people that are actually interested in the principles of crypto, which move into the principles of Web3, then you don't want venture capitalists controlling a single entity where transactions are being performed within this Web3 ecosystem. So no, it isn't always considered a good thing or whatever. It's just always considered a bad thing. All right, CoinDesk, that's how I see it if we're looking at this from the fundamentals of cryptocurrency and what the fundamentals of Web3 should be as interpreted from the fundamentals of cryptocurrency in the first place. Too much institutional interest could raise the eyebrows of decentralization diehards. Meanwhile, Ethereum has a loyal user base that many suspect won't abandon it. And that's the first mover advantage with Ethereum. I think that people will abandon Ethereum if there is a cheaper, easier solution to trade. And it kind of, one of the notes that we should bring up here is that not only is there a first mover thing, but there's also a convenience thing. The reason why so many people are utilizing still to this day OpenSea over any other platform is convenience and familiarity. The actual price, as long as you're able to sell whatever NFT you bought for more, the actual price of the transactions and stuff aren't actually being interpreted into people leaving the platform. It's actually because of that familiarity and convenience. That's where the first mover advantage comes into. It's why my parents still have AOL installed on their PCs, even though a majority of the world never uses it anymore. And the older the population gets, or the older the portion of the population gets, the more the first movers stick around. That doesn't mean they're going to stick around forever and other winners won't come. It's just kind of the way it happens, right? So let's talk about Cardano. And okay, so actually we have one more here. Nonetheless, Solana transacts at lightning speeds and fees equate to a fraction of a cent per transaction. Since launching in 2020, it has experienced strong adoption and settled more than 50 billion transactions. Perhaps the most appropriate way to view Solana is as a potentially more mainstream Ethereum. Here's the thing that you need to take into account for their transaction speeds, which is always flawed on all 5 of these. What is the most used blockchain currently out? It's Ethereum. We even looked at this yesterday when we were looking at the speed of transactions and the CBDC from, of course, the Boston Fed. One of the things that we looked at was they said they could do 1.7 million transactions in a second. Who has already done 1.7 million transactions in a second? Ethereum. Who else has done that amount? Nobody. Not even close. Not even Bitcoin. Okay? So to basically say that this small, like, look, the total market cap is for Solana, which is the next largest, is 62.3 billion. The total market cap of Ethereum is 370 billion, which with just astronomically higher transaction numbers, it's comparing apples and oranges. It's like this. It's like saying the Corvette that's stuck in traffic on I-35 in Austin, Texas is slower than the Ford Escort that's driving down the toll road, whatever that one is, I-30 or whatever. Well, yes, that is going faster, but given the same circumstances, if you move that Corvette over to the toll road, that Corvette's going to go much faster than the Ford Escort. It doesn't make sense. It's a moot point. It's a bad argument. Okay. Cardano is a contender for a more environmentally sustainable alternative to Ethereum. Its native currency, ADA. All right. We got to nitpick this one too. Every single time we get into discussions of programmable blockchain and competitors to Ethereum, we get environmentally sustainable alternatives. Okay. This is a false narrative for multiple reasons. But first of all, let's just talk about, of course, where are proof of stake coins hosted? They are hosted typically within virtual private servers that are large data centers run by Google, Amazon, etc. Typically, obviously, utilizing tons of power to supply all of the processing that needs to be done. On the other hand, what you have for proof of work is traditionally a little less so now, but traditionally you have a more decentralized network where the incentive is to lower the cost of your power. An investor in a proof of stake coin has no incentive or really any ability to reduce their power costs. Therefore, they will never look into that or actually try to achieve that. And because large entities that are running their nodes for them are so successful, they typically aren't looking at reducing their power costs with sustainable energy either, at least for the most part, to the extent that, say, like a Bitcoin mining farm would be looking to do it, because that's your 2 main metrics. Now, of course, in the case of Amazon, we have talked about their data centers not being cooled. Part of that being, of course, that they find that reducing the power cost from that perspective by reducing AC and increasing CFM is better for them. But that also works and plays within, of course, cryptocurrency as well. So the next point that I want to bring up, of course, is the level of economic success based on power. You can basically base the level of economic success of a country or a society or a group of people or even an individual based on their power consumption. Does that mean that we should not look into, of course, more renewable energy or anything like that? No, but your personal place within society, and even that society's place within the world, is directly related to the amount of power they are able to consume. Hopefully some sort of clean energy, hopefully maybe even some atomic energy or whatever that may be to supply all of that power that does less damage to the environment, etc. But that is the goal. Now, if that is one of the number one goals and one of the easiest ways for you to determine economic success, then you are also incentivized to essentially decrease the cost of that power. And the number one way to decrease the cost of that power is by moving to sustainable energy. So I would argue that proof of work mining actually stimulates the move towards renewable energies and more environmentally friendly power options over proof of stake, because proof of stake doesn't incentivize individuals to actually focus on this metric. It's a false narrative, is all I'm saying. Its native currency, ADA, had about 39.52 billion market cap at the time of this writing. Crypto insiders are keeping an eye on Cardano, which has performed modestly because of the recent release of Cardano's first decentralized finance exchange, SundaySwap. Now, one of the crazy things about Cardano, and that is a recent release that like increased, of course, I suppose, its price, is that its oracle, Ergo, had already done one and is ready to integrate Cardano as well. And it's a much newer coin in its proof of work. So I feel like it's kind of funny that Ergo's moving definitely moving faster than Cardano at this point. Time will tell whether Cardano can unseat Ethereum or if similar learning curves will occur as more users transact on the Cardano blockchain. Once again, the big issue that you see there with these competitors is everybody wants to talk about how fast they are for their transactions, but they aren't even near the volume of what Ethereum has. So it's kind of a silly point, but at least they kind of acknowledge that there. Now, this one's a big one that a lot of people have been asking me to look into. I have not had a chance to really look into it in depth. One of the things is I get a little frustrated, just to be like honest and upfront with you all, when I ask about proof of work stuff and then people are like, check out Tezos, check out Tezos. And I'm like, it's not proof of work. What are you talking about? It's like the same thing if I'm like talking about layer one solutions and people are like, talk about Matic. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're talking about today. So it doesn't mean that I'm not aware of Tezos and what it does. It just doesn't pertain to a majority of the conversations that we participate within this channel. Okay. So that being said, let's get a brief overview why they say it's kind of top competitor. Coming fast on the scene is Tezos, another smart contract capable blockchain used to issue new digital assets and create decentralized applications, or dApps. XTZ is the native cryptocurrency of Tezos. The currency had a market cap of 3.6 billion. That's so low at the time of this writing. Several notable projects have launched on Tezos, including those in the fashion, music, gaming, and art industries. Tezos was one of the first networks to use a proof of stake consensus mechanism. It also has unique governance features built in. Participants who stake at least 8,000 tokens on the network receive voting rights, which allow them to have a say in governance. Now, that is one thing that is actually, in my opinion, super good. And I think that at least if it's proof of stake, allowing the stakers to have a say through like in governance does put it, head and shoulders above the rest, where you either have a VC funding, right? In the case of the case of Solana, or you have some overarching developers that basically control the direction of the network based on their own votes without asking the rest of the participants within the network, i.e. Ethereum, right? So at least that seems a little bit better. As far as my opinions on Tezos taking over like Ethereum, it has a long ways to go. $3.6 billion compared to 370 billion. It's just nowhere close, guys. Nowhere close. Polkadot. Now, Polkadot I was into for quite some time. I thought that there was a lot going on there. I think now that we have other options, especially with different consensus mechanisms, that there are better things to move towards here, because what Polkadot is focused on is primarily going to be interoperability. There we go. I have a hard time saying it, but that's what they focus on, as they'll talk about here. And it kind of sets itself a little bit apart from your traditional smart contract blockchains like Ethereum and so on, because it's integrating with all of them. And I think this is important. It is kind of something Cardano is doing as well, but not to this extent. But Polkadot, DOT is the native cryptocurrency of the Polkadot platform. It had a market cap of 25.72 billion at the time of this writing, which is still nowhere close to Ethereum. Polkadot is known for a feature called interoperability. Its infrastructure connects several blockchains together into a single network, enabling them to exchange data without compromising their security. Interoperability is therefore essential for the future of Web3, in which services, products, and currency will move throughout what many hope will be a decentralized digital ecosystem. Robust interoperability also creates the possibility for cross-chain collaboration, potentially leading to more collaboration among protocols. Now, there's a better option technically for interoperability that is also proof of work as far as a consensus mechanism, and that's known as Flux. Now, what DOT has, as opposed to Flux, which I will fully point out, and I've already talked to Flux about this, I think even in the interview, is that Polkadot has incredible wiki and is very developer friendly. It also utilizes Rust, which some people are against because the standard's been Solidity across the board. But I think Rust is, from my understanding from the developers I've talked to, is very powerful, super good as a language, and offers more than Solidity in some cases. But you kind of have to have the support for that and the developers that are actually working within Rust, which I hear also it's more complicated than Solidity, so therefore there's probably less developers working within it. That being said, back to the original point, as far as Web3 goes, I think that Flux is a better option, especially because the biggest problem with Web3 right now that needs to be solved is infrastructure. And until you can figure out how to truly decentralize the infrastructure, it's not going to be Web3. One of the big problems there, of course, even that Flux is experiencing, is that a lot of their nodes that provide this decentralized infrastructure for building virtual private servers, etc., within the blockchain and within Web3 are still run on traditional virtual private servers that are run by the big three. And that's going to be an issue. While that's not the entire case and technically still better than being run under just Amazon itself, it still presents a problem of decentralization and what that needs to work out to at the end of the day. And when I say it's better to have some of all three, basically think of it like this. If you have a node in Google, a node in Amazon, and then a node in Azure, essentially AWS, Microsoft is Azure, Amazon, AWS, Google. Anyways, if you have any sort of, if the load balancers are working and you have any sort of failure and that particular data center for Amazon or whoever is down, technically the blockchain will be more robust from a failover standpoint and move over. That being said, I actually did experience a complete wipe of my Minecraft server on Flux when it reset. They are aware of the problem. Obviously, it's early days. I expect stuff like this. But, you know, the kids weren't very happy when the whole server got wiped and I didn't have any backups locally. Now I'm backing it up. But obviously, there's a long way to go for Web3 infrastructure. A long way to go. Let's look at their bottom line here. They say, bottom line, among smart contract blockchains, Ethereum still occupies the hearts of Web3 veterans and poses a strong possibility for widespread adoption. However, investors and advisors alike should stay informed about newer smart contract blockchains that present innovative solutions to Ethereum's shortcomings. As the demand for new dApps and DeFi protocols increase, everyone will be looking for the right infrastructure to use to build the future of Web3. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this clip from the Crypto Mining Morning Show every Monday through Friday, 7:45 a.m. Pacific and 10:45 a.m. Eastern Time. You can check out more clips here Or if you're interested in checking out the entire live show, you can check that out down here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Tuesday.